Good morning. I'd like to first of all welcome you all to the Playboy Club here in London, and I hope you're all very, very successful.
It's a big smile and then turn around once.
If you're not chosen today, don't be too unhappy because you're all very beautiful, and we get lots of lovely girls coming in here who are not accepted because they don't have bunny image.
Okay, there's a big smile.
This looks too dozy.
Then
Life
turn
in
and face in that direction.
You like dozy-looking birds.
Thank you very much. You see the girls coming in their day clothes, they look fantastic. Once you get them into a bikini, it's a complete change. It's a completely different thing.
During the 1970s, London's Playboy Club revelled in its image as a fantasy world for men. But in 1975, a brutal murder brought it unwanted attention.
A 21-year-old bunny girl at London's Playboy Club was savagely murdered in her Leytonstone flat.
The killing was the first in a series of 4 that some detectives believed may have been linked, and the work of one man.
To my mind, I'm looking for a brutal, callous killer who could well strike again.
To this day, the perpetrator's identity remains a mystery. Was there a serial killer on the streets of London who'd never been caught?
It became an obsession. You want to grab onto something.
Some bastard has got away with it. That's my anger.
His crimes left tragedy in their wake.
Lynn means so much to me. I love her more than anyone. Oh, sorry, that's...
But as time passes and memories fade, this might be the last chance to find answers.
Something's out there. Somebody knows something.
What was his name?
He's the one. He's the copper.
Hi there. It's Maida Vale, please. My name is Marcel Theroux. I'm a writer and a journalist. I stumbled across these crimes while researching a book on 1970s London. It was the city of my childhood, a weird mix of shabbiness and glamour. It begged belief that an unknown serial killer might have been walking its streets. I wanted to know what the police had done to catch him. The story began at the Playboy Club.
This is the temple where the faithful and a few cynics gather to pay homage to the good life. The Playboy Club in Park Lane.
It offered fine dining, gambling, and drinks served by glamorous hostesses dressed as sexy bunny rabbits.
And these are the high priestesses of the Playboy Club, the bunnies. Bobbing, beaming, bosoming.
It was the jewel in the crown of a global empire run by the American entrepreneur Hugh Hefner.
Do you feel that your customers come to basically look at the bunnies?
The bunnies, of course, are the most popular aspect of the club, but I think it's the total sense of being the Playboy Club that makes it popular.
Born overseas to a British father and German mother, Eve Stratford moved to London aged 19 in 1972. She had dreams of stardom, but ahead of her lay tragedy. Her brutal murder in 1975 was headline news and remains unsolved to this day. The team investigating Eve's death called it the Bunny Girl murder, as though the Playboy Club itself held the secret to the case. But did it?
We're on our way to see Barbara Haig. She was a bunny girl from the early 70s till when the Playboy Club closed in the 80s. Thank you. Barbara's the gatekeeper to the history of the Playboy Club. So if you want to know what was going on, Barbara's your first port of call. I'm a bit French, so I do both.
Is that what it is?
Oh, tell me about this photo here on our right.
Sir...
That's you.
Yes.
And I don't know, who are you with?
Oh, come on, don't you recognise him? You're old enough, surely.
Hang on, I'm old enough to need these. Go on, tell me.
It's David Frost.
Yeah, I thought it was going to say David
Sir
Frost.
David Frost, before he was a sir. It was Sammy Davis's birthday party. So there was a lot of other people there, well-known people, but obviously they didn't photograph them with me in them. That's the only reason we kept that one.
Oh, that's great.
My costumes, they're all falling apart.
That is an original Bunny Girl costume.
Yeah. Because I had my own boobs, they cut the cups out.
What's it like going to work in so little, wearing such a small uniform?
Everybody tries to make out it's something sordid or grim. No, nothing was to be exposed, but enhanced.
How did you feel wearing it?
Great. Once you'd put on your tail and your ears, oh, you're Bunny Barbara.
Now, I'm going to show you what a bunny looks like. Claudine is young, she's fresh, she has a pleasant personality, a fabulous figure, and she works like a Trojan.
In 1973, Eve Stratford joined the Playboy Club and was christened Bunny Ava.
I was on the camera. I was camera bunny at the time, and she used to come to see me because she was very much, I'm a bunny, and I would like to be in Playboy magazine.
What was she like in your interactions when she was posing for you? And you
Very girly, very young, very naive, and, you know, stars are in her eyes. That's lovely.
Was that her at the top?
Yeah.
With John Conte?
Yeah. There she is with Eric Morecambe.
I mean, it must have been a thrill. You're rubbing shoulders with
But look at them.
Celebrities of the...
They're not showing anything.
No, they are.
There's less than a bloody bikini.
So a bunny girl is essentially was a kind of hostess who was trained to serve drinks and be elegant and super efficient.
Yes, but not touched.
The idea that took hold that there was something sleazy about it, or that the bunnies were available for sex, or that there was prostitution going on. What do you say to that?
No, it wasn't. I certainly didn't earn my living on my back. You couldn't give out your surname. You couldn't give out your address. You couldn't give out your phone number. And you weren't tempted, because if you did get caught, you'd lose your job.
In spite of all these safeguards, someone had targeted Eve.
When did you last see Bunny Ava alive?
It was round about Valentine's Day in '75, because she's in a photo shoot. That's our little Ava there.
You don't want to be macabre, but it is a month later she's dead. It is an awful...
Absolutely.
When did you hear the news of her death? What did you feel at that point when you...
I was sick. Really quite sick. That somebody could be so cruel as to murder a kid like that for no reason. She would never have done anything to provoke that sort of murder. She's only a kid. And there's nobody left to defend her. Her parents are dead. Her whole bloody family's dead. There's no one but us, old boilers, who were around in 1975, who can protect her.
What is it that you want to protect? What are you protecting her from?
Well, these people who are trying to make out that she was doing something untoward to get murdered. And the anger comes that some bastard has got away with it. That's my anger.
Eve was part of a generation enjoying the freedoms inspired by the 1960s. At the time of her murder, Eve was living with her boyfriend, Tony Priest, the lead singer in a rock band called Vineyard. When I first became interested in this case, I spent ages tracking Tony down. He'd never been interviewed. I found out that after Eve's death, he'd started a new life abroad.
Living on low notes, it ain't
I brought some things to take you to another era. Take you back to the 1970s and see what we got. The glory days of 1975.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's...
Yes, that was in Warrington, and that was the 21st.
28th of December 1974.
That's Big Bird, her father, Eve, of course, and me.
And I like this one because it's so natural. Rock star on the rise, beautiful young woman. It's a new era. You got freedoms that your parents could never have imagined.
Her expression there, that was very much Eve. She was laughing about something. She was just very bubbly and always very friendly and always laughing. Yeah, just a really nice girl.
What did you see your future at this point with Eve?
We were planning to run to go to Gretna Green and get married, actually.
Eve Stratford, a 21-year-old bunny girl at London's Playboy Club, was savagely murdered in her Leytonstone flat. She was wearing a brown full-length coat over blue denim slacks and a brown felt hat, and the hat brim was probably pulled down as it was a horrible snowy day.
I came home from work, usual time, walked up the steps at the side, let myself in. I remember saying, "Hey babe, I'm home." And just silence, and I'm thinking, it's funny. Didn't think, walked up the stairs, straight ahead was the bedroom. And I walked into our bedroom and found Eve. The penny didn't fall first. I mean, she was laying face down with her head turned to the side. I thought, are you out of it? I got down on one knee and moved her hair back to see her face. And then I suddenly realized I was kneeling in a pool of blood. And then the penny dropped. And then I looked at her and I thought, fuck, you're dead. Tied up with a throat cut. There's no, I can't describe it. It's just like, you're just confused. Horror, I mean, I can't imagine the terror she must have been in, That's one of the things which was apparent. And Christ, this must have been bloody terrifying, And she was such a soft person, just so sweet. She just absolutely didn't deserve that. How? Who? Who the hell did this?
Hours after finding his girlfriend dead, Tony was in a police cell being treated as a suspect. Semen had been recovered from Eve's body. Police assumed it belonged to her killer.
For the first however long, you were the prime suspect. Everyone will be wondering, were you somehow involved in Eve's murder?
I mean, I quite understand that they thought I was involved because the husband and the boyfriend are always the first suspects. Something like that. They take you and they take you down the police station. And I remember being in a cell, and I spent the night in the cell. But of course, the police don't know anything. I mean, you're a suspect. It's up to me to tell my story. And then I've had to go and give blood because obviously they had semen samples, and my blood didn't match the semen sample, so it wasn't me. I knew I had no guilt.
I just want to go back in 75. Who are you thinking about? Any suspects?
At the time, I was frantically looking for something to grab onto because the police didn't seem to be going anywhere, and who that was and why and how. That's all conjecture, you know. Then I started thinking, this Arab in the Playboy Club, who Eve had quite a bit of contact with, Eve had talked about him. There was no secret. I don't think she was doing anything with him. Yeah, he was sort of in the picture. So, you know, you're just thinking, well, what about him, you know? I think he was called Ali. I don't know. I can't remember exactly who this guy was.
Yeah. This is sort of a new line as far as I'm concerned. It seems like an important lead.
However, pursuing this lead would get me nowhere. There was no Ali. It would be a while before I understood that Tony had misremembered this man's name. I know from research that police investigated a number of Middle Eastern men who frequented the Playboy Club. At the time, the club was the most successful casino in Europe, awash with money from the Middle East.
With the pound sinking and petrodollars flooding the British investment markets, there are Arabian nights and days bringing prosperity to almost every sector of the economy.
The flip side of the prosperity was resentment and prejudice towards the rich outsiders. I would come to discover that these attitudes had even affected the way Eve's death had been investigated.
Last Tuesday, the day she died, Eve left a train at Leytonstone tube station at 3:45 in the afternoon. That's the last time she was definitely seen alive. She either walked, caught a bus, or was given a lift to her flat 3/4 of a mile away in Lyndhurst Drive.
In the days before DNA or CCTV, the police investigation was labor-intensive. A squad of 40 officers took statements from 400 people and fingerprinted 250. There was an abundance of theories: a stalker, a jealous lover, someone who'd encountered Eve at the Playboy Club, perhaps a client from the Middle East. But time passed and no one was ever charged. Even now, Eve's case is still open. The Metropolitan Police is tight-lipped about its details. But after a long search, I've found someone from the original investigation who'll talk. Derek Carruthers was the first detective to attend the murder. His job was to catalogue the evidence on the day Eve died.
You don't recall that? No, there being a gap at this side.
A confidential source gave me the crime scene photos. I've brought them to help jog his memory.
So this is
Lyndhurst Drive. The top part of the building up here is the apartment where Eve was. Just to the left here was a stairway going up between the building that led towards the second floor. The door was open, I went in. There were no signs of forcible entry. No sign of a struggle.
That's the bedroom.
The scene. The first thing that I saw that stuck in my memory was Eve lying on the floor. I could see the extent of the injuries on her neck, throat. Almost decapitated. I'd never seen anything as horrific as this in any of the other murders that I've been to. They're horrific.
What kind of suspect did you imagine you were looking for?
Because it was 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe somebody known to her or a local followed her from the tube.
So your hunch at that time was it was possibly a local person who...
I did feel that at the time, yeah. Well, lots of different names come up. But as exhibits officer, I wasn't directly involved in interviewing any of them.
What were the key exhibits at the scene of the Eve Stratford murder?
The murder weapon was never found, and it was obviously a substantial, very sharp knife. The most important thing he left, as far as I'm concerned now, is the semen.
Your belief was that the semen belonged to Eve's killer?
Oh, I do, absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it. Nobody at that time obviously even knew that DNA was going to be coming a few years later. I left the Met in 1977, and it wasn't until the mid-80s then that when I became aware of the advances in forensic science and DNA, I decided to write to the Met and suggest that they have a look at the exhibits, because I knew amongst the exhibits there was semen.
In 1997, the Metropolitan Police wrote to Derek to say they were unable to get a DNA profile from the samples.
Something's out there. Somebody knows something at this stage.
Eve did modelling assignments, and one of them was for the cover of a piece of pulp fiction, and it's a book called The Revenger. It's always struck me as a creepy footnote to Eve's murder. It's very gratuitous, soft porn that wouldn't be on a book cover today. But what's strange and a bit unsettling about it is that in the photograph on the cover, Eve is being attacked from behind by a man, and you realise that Eve's death scene was possibly not dissimilar from what's depicted in the photograph.
In spite of all their work, the detectives on the Eve Stratford case were unable to identify the murderer. But their hunt gained new impetus 4 years later. In 1979, 29-year-old Linda Farrow was found murdered in circumstances eerily similar to Eve's. She'd been a croupier at a casino which, like the Playboy Club, was in London's West End. She'd had her throat cut in her own home, just 4 miles from where Eve was killed. It was enough to persuade detectives that her and Eve's murders might be linked. The murder of a Playboy bunny and a West End croupier led detectives to wonder whether the murderer was the same man, someone in London's glittering demi-monde who might have known both women. Several years ago, when I first started looking into these crimes, I tracked down Linda Farrow's mother, Gladys.
You really got a sense of someone whose life had been defined by one event, and that event was the murder of her daughter, and the injustice of it and the agony of it continued to torture her. She was still hopeful that someone would be able to give her any kind of closure, and I think that's why she spoke to me.
Gladys Hayes died in 2021. Shortly before her death, she invited me to her house so she could tell me about her daughter's murder. Gladys had fought until her dying day to get justice for Linda.
She came down to me this morning and she said to me, Mum, I won't be coming down to you tomorrow.
The way Gladys described the moment of Linda's death was almost as if she was there herself.
They let the kids out of school early that day, and the one little girl, when she went by, she said she thought she heard like a little baby crying. That was Marlene begging for her life.
At the time of her murder, Linda, the mother of 2 young children, was pregnant.
He tortured her first before he killed her. He stabbed her. He put the knives in her where she put her hands was cut to pieces, where she tried to stop him from killing her baby.
I found the interview quite harrowing. She had a slight stammer, which became particularly strong when she was emotional.
He come back and pulled away and pulled away and
The further I go on this journey, the more baffled I get, to be honest. From the moment of Linda Farrow's murder in 1979, people were connecting her death with that of Eve Stratford. But I know that there's also a possibility that the crimes are unconnected.
Every serial killer I've worked with starts with a sexual fantasy.
Professor David Wilson is an eminent criminologist. He's studied the cases of Eve Stratford and Linda Farrow.
We become obsessed with the stories of the mass, the spree, and the serial killer. To want to take another person's life.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.
I look like an older student in my room.
One of your maturer students.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah. So, Marcel, where are you in all this?
Well, there's been lots of conjecture by the police over the years that the two murders are connected. So I want to look at that more deeply with you and see if there's reason to believe that the same man committed both murders.
Well, I suppose it's perfectly legitimate to have connected them initially. You know, these are two women, very young, attractive women working in the West End, in nightclubs, both killed in roughly similar ways. So it is feasible that there is a connection, and I can understand why the police initially did that. Linking murders is a real science that we would now think through very carefully and differently from how it was thought through in the 1970s. But cold cases can become hot again.
Well, at minimum, that's what I hope.
I brought along the crime scene photos for both Eve and Linda's murders. I hoped Professor Wilson would be able to say from them whether the two crimes were truly connected, as the police at the time had believed.
They do look similar. To me, they look like sisters, almost, in that picture.
This first crime scene photograph taken of Linda's murder shows us her house. Linda got out of the car, bringing in groceries, and she gets to the front door. She hears the phone ringing. She puts the groceries down to answer the phone, left the door open, and I think that was used as an opportunity for the killer to get into the house. We're dealing with the throat being cut. Here is the picture of the knife that kills her, and that knife belongs to the kitchen. He doesn't bring the knife to the crime scene. There's no evidence of any sexual activity. There are defensive wounds.
Where are the defensive wounds?
On her hands and on her cheek, as if she was hit.
From the moment that Linda Farrow is murdered, detectives are drawing parallels between her death and that of Eve Stratford 4 years earlier. They were both murdered from behind, had their throats cut by a left-handed individual, and in their mind, there are overwhelmingly strong reasons for investigating the two women's murders together.
Yeah, I perfectly understand why from the time these scenes would be connected. But these are very different victims and very different crime scenes that I think are motivated in Eve's case by sexual sadism. We have that through the binding of the arms and the legs. We have that from the sexual activity that we know has taken place. And in Linda's case, for me, I get a sense of an argument. There are bruises at the back of her head. She has a black eye on the right side. So this is a real struggle that we've got here.